The Douglas XB-42 Mixmaster stands out as one of the most intriguing experimental bombers of its time, designed by American engineers with the singular goal of achieving unprecedented top speeds. What made the Mixmaster so unique was its radical approach to propulsion and aerodynamics. Instead of the traditional wing-mounted engines, the XB-42 featured two powerful engines ingeniously placed within the fuselage. These engines drove a pair of contra-rotating propellers positioned at the tail in a pusher configuration. This design choice kept the aircraft's wings and fuselage clean, streamlined, and free from the drag-inducing protrusions that typically hampered speed and performance. The result was an aircraft with a remarkably sleek profile, promising significant aerodynamic advantages and higher efficiency. The Mixmaster's design also provided better protection for the engines and potentially reduced the risk of damage from enemy fire, as the engines were not exposed on the wings. Douglas Aircraft Company constructed two prototypes of the XB-42, which demonstrated impressive performance during test flights. The Mixmaster reached speeds that rivaled the fastest aircraft of its era, showcasing the potential of its innovative design. However, the XB-42's journey was cut short by the shifting tides of history. The conclusion of World War II brought a realignment of military priorities, and the rapid development of jet engine technology offered an alternative and more promising path to achieving high-speed flight. Jets like the Messerschmitt May 262 and the Gloucester Meteor were already proving their capabilities, rendering propeller-driven designs like the XB-42 less appealing. The Douglas XB-42 Mixmaster was initially developed as a private venture, with its unsolicited proposal presented to the United States Army Air Forces in May 1943. The USAAF saw potential in the innovative design, envisioning a bomber that could match the range of the Boeing B-29 Superfortress without its size or cost. This led to a contract for two prototypes and one static test airframe. Central to the XB-42's design were two Allison V1700 10-125 liquid-cooled V12 engines mounted behind the crew cabin. Each engine drove one of the twin contra-rotating propellers at the tail, utilizing air intakes in the wing's leading edge. The aircraft featured a tricycle landing gear and a four-surface cruciform tail, with the ventral fin rudder incorporating a tailwheel to prevent the propellers from striking the ground during takeoff and landing. The cockpit was designed with twin bubble canopies for the pilot and co-pilot, while the bombardier was positioned at the extreme front behind a plexiglass nose. For defensive armament, the XB-42 was equipped with two 0.50-inch machine guns on each side of the trailing edge of the wing. These guns retracted when not in use and were aimed by the co-pilot through a sighting station at the rear of his cockpit. Although the guns had a limited field of fire, 25 degrees left and right, and plus 20 to minus 15 degrees in elevation, it was believed that the aircraft's high speed would discourage attacks from other angles. Additionally, two forward-firing guns were installed for offensive capabilities. An attack variant, initially ordered as the XA-42 in the summer of 1943, was planned to be armed with 16 machine guns, or a 75 mm cannon, and two machine guns. One notable feature of the XB-42 was its safety mechanism designed to address the danger of bailing out and potentially being struck by the rear propellers. Engineers installed an explosive arrangement that could sever the props from the tail cone in an emergency, ensuring the crew's safe egress. The Douglas XB-42 Mixmaster's journey began when the first prototype was delivered to the United States Army Air Forces and took its maiden flight at Palm Springs, California, on May 6, 1944. The aircraft's performance lived up to expectations, matching the speed of the de Havilland Mosquito B-16 while boasting defensive armament and double the bomb load over short distances. However, initial tests revealed issues with the twin bubble canopies, which hindered effective communication between the pilot and co-pilot. This led to the replacement with a single bubble canopy after the first flight of the second prototype. During testing, the XB-42 exhibited some instability, particularly excessive yaw, along with propeller vibration and inadequate engine cooling, problems that were deemed solvable. The ventral vertical stabilizer and rudder assembly, positioned beneath the fuselage, required careful handling during taxiing, takeoff, and landing due to limited ground clearance. To mitigate the risk of ground strikes, an integral shock absorber was added to the ventral fin to reduce bending forces on the tail cone. The conclusion of World War II provided the USAAF with an opportunity to focus on developing new aircraft. Military leaders decided to prioritize the emerging jet bomber technology over continuing the B-42 program, despite the Mixmaster's promising performance. One notable achievement of the XB-42 was a transcontinental speed record set in December 1945. Captain Glenn Edwards and Lieutenant Colonel Henry E. Warden flew the second prototype from Long Beach, California, to Bolling Air Force Base in Washington, D.C., covering approximately 2,300 miles. The XB-42 completed the flight in 5 hours and 17 minutes, achieving an impressive average speed of 433.6 miles per hour. The record-breaking XB-42 prototype met a tragic end on December 16, 1945. During a routine flight from Bolling Field, Washington, D.C., the aircraft encountered a series of catastrophic failures. Initially, there was a problem with the landing gear extension, followed by the failure of the left engine. As the coolant temperatures rose, the right engine also failed. Major Hayduck bailed out at 1,200 feet, Lieutenant Colonel Haney at 800 feet, and the pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Fred J. Ascani, after crawling aft to jettison the pusher propellers at 400 feet. Remarkably, all 3 men survived. The aircraft, however, crashed at Oxon Hill, Maryland. The classified jettisonable propeller technology led to confusion among ground witnesses, who believed they saw the aircraft explode. While fuel management issues were speculated, the exact cause of the crash was never conclusively determined. The remaining XB-42 prototype continued to play a significant role in flight test programs. In December 1943, Douglas proposed upgrading the aircraft with more powerful engines and adding underwing Westinghouse 19 XB-2 axial flow turbojets, each producing 1,600 lbf of thrust. This modified version was designated the XB-42A. The XB-42A first flew at Muroc Army Airfield, now Edwards Air Force Base, on May 27, 1947. During testing, it achieved a top speed of 488 miles per hour. However, after just 22 flights, the aircraft sustained damage to its ventral fin and rudder in a hard landing later in 1947. Though the XB-42A was repaired, it never flew again and was officially removed from the USAF inventory on June 30, 1949. The entire XB-42 program, including the B-43 project, cost $13.7 million. Despite its short-lived operational history, the XB-42 Mixmaster remains a fascinating example of innovative aviation design. Its development and testing provided valuable insights that influenced future aircraft design, particularly in the transition from propeller-driven planes to jet-powered aircraft. The first prototype of the Douglas XB-42 Mixmaster now resides in the restoration hangar at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, awaiting restoration. This prototype was removed from the USAF inventory in 1949 and subsequently donated to the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. However, it has never been put on public display. During its transfer, the wings were removed for transport and have since been lost. In 2010, the fuselage of the XB-42, along with the Douglas XB-43 Jetmaster, was transferred to the National Museum of the United States Air Force. Both aircraft are currently housed in the museum's restoration hangars. Once their restoration is completed, they will be showcased in the museum's experimental aircraft hangar, offering visitors a unique glimpse into the innovative designs and aviation advancements of the mid-20th century. The XB-42 Mixmaster's legacy is a testament to the ingenuity and experimental spirit of its era. Its innovative design, featuring internal engines and contra-rotating pusher propellers, set it apart from other aircraft of its time.